Hi, this is 𝗀𝗶𝘃𝗀𝗃. Today we're going to talk about the PrimaLuna EVO 400 power amp. I'm really excited to do a video about this. I got an email from a guy who had bought some PrimaLuna back in 2005. You know, back in the earlier days. PrimaLuna was founded in 2003. This guy bought his in 2005, and he just said, Kevin, I cannot believe this. I had to sell my stuff because I got, you know, he had to sell his PrimaLuna, which he'd owned all these years without any problems at all. He said, I cannot believe it. I sold it for more than I paid for it back in 2005. And he was shocked by that, but I've heard that from other people, that the early PrimaLuna stuff has become quite collectible. It continues to work because it's built to last a lifetime. And that really, I gotta tell you, that makes me happy because there's no brand that's been made in the last 20 years that you can say that about, that I can think of. I mean, the Levinson number 25 phono stage, that's one piece, but nothing that is contemporary, right? Old Mac MC240s, MC30 back in the day when they were made a little bit different, you know, those things are certainly collectible. I mean, why wouldn't they be? But, you know, the stuff that really commands value is old Marantz because I collect it. So an old Model 2, you don't even want to know what that amp, you know, sells for. And then a Model 8 and the Model 7. And so why is that? Well, you have to look, and PrimaLuna looked at that when PrimaLuna was founded. Old products that were made with point-to-point wiring have a different intrinsic value to them, specifically Marantz. Look at the Marantz Model 9s, EL34s, point-to-point wiring, and they are worth bank today. I collect that stuff. I've got bunches of it because I love it, and it's just, you know, it's so fun. I don't really listen to it, though, because PrimaLuna is so much better. What PrimaLuna did is they looked at what worked back then, and they created something with the best materials made today and new technology that people would not have even thought of back in the day, like adaptive auto bias. And so it's kind of funny, you know, back then, a Marantz 8B, which is just such a cherished product, it was 35 watts per channel out of a pair of EL34s. And guess what a PrimaLuna is? 36 watts out of a pair of EL34s. This amp in particular runs 4 EL34s, and you wonder why that is. Why is it there's so many power tubes and it has low power? Because they run the tubes easy. Back in the day, people loved Marantz, and they continue to love Marantz because they ran the tubes easy. Something happened, and I think I can blame it a little bit on the guitar amp industry, that somehow, and I can blame it on advertising and trying to sell it. This idea of, oh, no, more power is better. You remember those days, right? Back in the days of solid state receivers, you know, bigger power and then lower distortion. And then we found out that having 0.08% distortion or even 1% distortion didn't mean anything compared to 0.005. And anybody who is my age remembers those days of everybody dropping the numbers one after the other. And we found out that it was all advertising and a tremendous amount of fluff. So the thing with power is, you know, manufacturers got into this thing of trying to sell more power. That's why you don't see a lot of companies using EL34s. You can't really beat them up too much. But if you talk to any tube head, I mean, they're going to tell you, man, EL34s are magical in the way that they sound. I mean, they're just fabulous. Now, of course, being a PrimaLuna, you have the freedom to use anything that you want. But the reason that PrimaLuna can use EL34s is this. They run the tubes at the minimum voltage, the minimum dissipation per tube without going over into crossover distortion. What that means is we don't want sound to degrade from running the tubes easy at all. We want to keep them in a linear position, but we want to extend tube life. Most people that know about tubes and most people who are really well read about audio know that you don't use that much power. You don't use, typically a lot of customers are only going to use 3, 5, maybe 10 watts of power. So this whole thing about chasing power down, and I want to say something to you about that. On the PrimaLuna USA website, there is a tab there that is called Vital Info, and I want you to go to it because it indeed is vital. It'll break down why PrimaLunas run the tube so easy, why adaptive auto bias is amazing, why point-to-point wiring. I mean, all the things that go into making PrimaLuna the premier brand in vacuum tube audio today. So you can use any tubes you want in a PrimaLuna. It's just that people really love EL34s. But you know, because of adaptive auto bias, you can run KT88s, KT90s, KT66s, KT120s, even KT150s. As a matter of fact, let me tell you something about adaptive auto bias. This magazine did a review about a PrimaLuna amp, and they said, well, PrimaLuna says that they are the first to have adaptive, an auto bias circuit, and that is not true. We've never said that we were the first to have an auto bias circuit, because that's silly. There has been all kinds of auto bias circuits over the years, but let's be real about it. They have been horrible. I mean, because, you know, I'm thinking about, well, I don't want to name names, right? But they have been okay. They've done just fine. But really, look, bias is an important question because it's like going from 8 carburetors. You got 8 power tubes in this amp. Think of it as being 8 carburetors, and you have to set the idle to each of them. So imagine synchronizing 8 carburetors, not just when they're idling, but when you press on the gas. It's very, very difficult to do. And if you don't do it right, then distortion is going to go up when you press on the gas, which means increasing volume. So adaptive auto bias looks at each tube constantly and makes very small adjustments to keep the tubes in the perfect operating condition. And then PrimaLuna is the only brand that I'm aware of that addresses another phenomenon that's called pinch effect or pinch off. And that is basically the idea of what happens to a tube when it's being pushed to its very, very limits. Now, if you want to put different tubes in it, party on. And in fact, at shows, we have taken these amps and we have run 8 different power tubes at once. An EL34, KT66, KT88, KT120, all of them together at the same time. And if nobody told you, you'd probably never be able to hear the difference. Why is that? Because it's powerful engineering. The engineers from PrimaLuna are some of the best minds in European audio. I'm talking about the chief engineers from Goldman in Switzerland. Real engineering, not fluff engineering. And that's why the product has blossomed and grown. You know, this replaced the HP power amp. And if you have an HP power amp, you don't need to replace it. You own something that is going to be amazing now, and it is going to be amazing in 20 years from now, and I would hope will be worth more money than it is today. But what they wanted to do with the EVO 400 was just fine-tune little itty-bitty things. They wanted to change the feet. You know, rubber feet have a tendency to react with wooden shelves and with some finishes. So Herman and the people in the Netherlands, they came up with a little slip pads for the bottom of the feet. We wanted to beef up the adaptive auto bias board with larger protective relays. We wanted to put, little doomsday fuses. You don't need a doomsday fuse on the side. But we had a magazine reviewer once who was drinking a little bit much, and he admitted to it, and he loved looking at the tubes, and he got up to change a record, and he tripped over the amp, and that was a catastrophic tube failure. So we wanted to protect against that type of a thing. So it's a 70 watt per channel amp running EL34s. You can get up to you can get 82 watts per channel out of KT120s, and with KT150s you can get up to 84 watts. But the thing is, I would not buy those tubes and make those changes because of the additional power, because power doesn't mean anything in a tube amp. Listen to what I'm going to tell you. You need to have enough power. That's true. You need to have some reserve power. But if you're only using 5, 10 watts, maybe 20 watts, anything beyond that is just not necessary, and that's why we run the tube so easy. So where do you get bass slam? In a tube amplifier, it's going to come from the output transformers. And PrimaLuna is famous for their output transformers. It's been talked about in the magazines year after year after year. They're designed in-house, they are wound in-house. You can have all the power in the world, all the power in the world. Some of the worst bass I've ever heard was from a 500 watt per channel pair of monoblocks, and it was horrible. Why is that? Because there was tons of power. That meant the ability to go louder, but it did not mean that you had bandwidth. And that's what's going to give you the bass, and that's what's going to give you the top end. And that is the secret sauce to every tube amp, and manufacturers don't like to talk about it because almost, not all of them, many manufacturers buy their output transformers off the shelf. And it is the most expensive part to a tube amp, along with the power transformer, and they want to save money. Herman van den Dungen, who is the founder of PrimaLuna, I gotta say something. He is a man that has changed my life and one of my dearest friends. And I hope I've changed his life. I remember I went to his store in the Netherlands back in 2000 when we started doing the AHA new tube CD player. And we sold thousands of those things. I mean, and they were under $1,000, and they smoke products that cost 5-10 times as much, and people still use them today. I went to one of his stores, and there was a stack of products there, and he looked at it and he said, I remember it perfectly, he said, "Look at this shit. Look at it. It's expensive, and it breaks, and I can't get parts." And he and I kind of think the same thing, that to some degree, high-end audio has gone off the rails just a little bit. Some people say, okay, let's see. You know, if we charge $5,000 for it, that's fine. We're going to make a lot of money. But you know what? If we charge $10,000 or $15,000, everybody's going to think it's the best. And PrimaLuna has always been a company. Look, when you go to a store, there's going to be sometimes they go, oh, you're going to get a great deal on this because I'm going to give you a discount. So they take a product that's overpriced, then they give you a discount, and you're still overpaying for it. Everybody pays the same price for PrimaLuna. They don't get discounted. Everybody pays the same price, and it's an amazing value for the dollar. So you got to get away from that kind of thinking when you look at a PrimaLuna. Don't look at whether or not you get a discount if you go to your local dealer. Look at what you're getting for your money. And this amplifier is incomparable. For God's sakes, look at over here. It has 2 adaptive auto bias boards. One to handle each channel, keeping the tubes in perfect unison, not just now, but when they get old. And it even extends the usable life of tubes. And it works even better. The more you turn up your music, the more you crank it up, the more it reduces distortion. The adaptive auto bias does a lot more than make the amp sound good, though. Adaptive auto bias is also about protection. With some amplifiers, you don't even have a fuse protection. In some amplifiers, if a tube shorts, and you're going to have a tube short, you're going to lose a plate resistor or a screen resistor, and that means a trip to the shop, right? And that's the thing. Look, people never buy a tube amp and then go back to solid state because solid state sounds better. They just don't. They buy a tube amp and they go, oh my God, it was a hassle to own it. Tube amps aren't a hassle to own. The wrong tube amp is a hassle to own, and PrimaLuna wanted to eliminate all of that. I mean, look, on these other amps, you lose a tube, you have to guess which tube is bad. On a PrimaLuna, there's a little red LED in front of each tube to tell you which tube failed. So if one shorts, then a relay opens up on the adaptive auto bias boards and will tell you to put the amplifier into protection and protect all the other parts. You simply plug in another tube, and you know what? It doesn't even have to be the right tube. I could plug in a KT88 or whatever I want to do and get the thing going again, right? Just plug in another tube, turn the power back on, and go. This is one of the only, well, not one of the only, to my knowledge, this is the only amplifier on the market that will allow you to change it from an ultralinear amp to a triode amp at the push of a button on this beautiful remote control. Red light means ultralinear. That's the flattest response. Ultralinear is the most modern amplifier design. It's what 90% of the amplifiers that are out there are based on, is ultralinear or some twist of ultralinear. But back before ultralinear, what people were listening to was push-pull triode. That was state of the art. Now, what's the difference? There's a whole video on that on the PrimaLuna website, but just put it this way. Triode is a warmer presentation. It's a more relaxed presentation. It's that golden glow that people think about when they think about vacuum tubes. So on a PrimaLuna, you can literally change it to a triode amp at the push of a button from your listening chair. And for me, I usually use ultralinear, except at night, because at night I want to hunker down. I don't want to think about text messages. I don't want to think about emails. I don't want to think about problems. I want to think about chilling. And that's what triode means to me. But you'll make your own decisions. You know, it's going to be up to you. The power is in your hand. You're going to see that compared to PrimaLuna integrated amps that have a 4 ohm tap and an 8 ohm tap for your speakers, the power amplifiers are going to have 3 different speaker taps. And that's going to allow you to fine-tune the matching between the amp and the speakers better. So, when you are running the amp in stereo, these taps on the back are going to be a 4 ohm tap, an 8 ohm tap, and a 16 ohm tap. Do not look at the speaker that you own and look at what the manufacturer says and judge it that way. You have to listen to it by ear and use the tap that sounds best. I remember many, many years ago, the original Martin Logan CLS2Z. Everybody talked about, oh my God, it's got such a low impedance, it'll make amplifiers burn up, blah, 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 blah. But for people that knew, at least with this particular brand of amp that I had, you used a 16 ohm tap. Do it by ear. But you have a lot more flexibility because you have 3 different taps. Now, this amplifier will allow you to run it in stereo or mono. And I got to say something about that. It's a very, very unique design because you have 2 output transformers on this amp. So if you monoblock it, how is that possible? Because one transformer is going to run over into the other transformer. But PrimaLuna came up with countermeasures that allows them to do that. And I'm going to tell you something. If you monoblock PrimaLuna amps, it is absolutely magical. It is absolutely magical. And those speaker taps that are on the back that were 4, 8, and 16 ohms, they become a 2 ohm tap, a 4 ohm tap, and an 8 ohm tap. So that 2 ohm tap is great for, you know, like really super crazy speakers. The new model has XLR-in, and they did it the right way. I know of many amplifiers that use an IC, and that is an okay way to go. But I know some manufacturers, they don't use anything. They just use a little jumper across an XLR jack. PrimaLuna uses an amazing quality. It is a transformer coupled, balanced in, and it's done the right way. I'm going to tell you that. So you can really benefit if you're going to hook this up to a preamp with a balanced out, or maybe you have a music streamer that has a balanced out. You're going to get all the benefits of doing so. There's a little switch on the side that allows you to change it from low bias to high bias. So that allows you to fine-tune the bias setting. The entire circuit is hand-wired with Swiss-made, silver-plated, oxygen-free copper with a Teflon dielectric. I mean, and nobody does work like that. Well, I'll tell you, there is one company, and I'm going to give them a shout-out. Atmosphere. Ralph Carson, Atmosphere. They make their stuff with point-to-point wiring, and it is beautifully done. But they're OTL amps, and I don't know that they work for so many people, right? But no one else that I can think of does this kind of handiwork, and that's why this product is going to hold its value. The pink resistors in critical places, those are TACMAN resistors. They're made in Japan, literally. Literally, they are custom built to order, and they're known for their low noise and linearity. In the front end, you're going to have all 12AU7s, and I love 12AU7s. You know why? because there's more of them being made today than any other tube. There's all kinds of variations of them. So there's a whole video on tube rolling on the PrimaLuna website. There's also the PrimaLuna Owners Facebook page. You can talk about that stuff. You can fine-tune the sound to your own taste. But 12AU7s are just such a great tube. And if you're into the vintage tube thing, there's more 12AU7s than any other part. And the reason is, it is a great tube. They have wonderful body, they have wonderful warmth. The 2 tubes in the front, those are the preamp tubes. The 4 tubes on the side, those are driver tubes. They didn't have to use 4 tubes. You may not even hear the difference by using just 1 pair of driver tubes, but they wanted to be able to swing just a little bit more voltage. Look at all of the tube sockets. They're ceramic, and they're not mounted to a PCB. Printed circuit boards are not your friend in a tube amplifier because there's a lot of heat that builds up inside. And then if you have the amplifier on and you wiggle some tubes, then the PCBs can crack, and then it just becomes something that ends up at a pawn shop or something. I mean, and that's the reason that PrimaLunas are going to work year after year after year. Look at the sockets. Not only are they not on a PCB, they are mounted to these chimneys that are held on with 4 bolts, fully ventilated. And then look at the chassis. A lot of manufacturers you're going to see today are going to use a flat silver or a flat black, or they actually use kind of a pebble finish. And the reason that they use a pebble finish is very simple. Poor quality metalwork. PrimaLuna does not. It's a high gloss finish. It is a gorgeous bluish gray finish. I mean, it looks amazing. The new faceplates have a nice bevel to the edges. I mean, it's just gorgeous. There's 5 coats of hand rub finish on this. And, you just use the little Meguiar's on it, once a year and just keep it beautiful. I mean, it's a piece of art. Even the remote control's been improved. They just made it a little bit sleeker. And look at this. With so many products, you get cheap plastic remotes. This is machined. And they even put little neoprene rings on the ends so it protects your furniture. Who thinks of those details? Herman van den Dungen does, because he cares. He wants to make... Look, I know that Germany is known for precision, right? The main office for PrimaLuna, where all the brainstorming is, in the Netherlands. And I shudder to say Dutch people are obsessed about order and perfection. Even the packaging. There's two boxes, double wall boxes. I mean, it comes with white gloves. I mean, it's an ownership experience that just really, really has to be breathed in. Oh my God. Oh, one more thing, the power transformer. The power transformer is a toroid. And that's a really difficult thing to do in an amplifier that is so big. But it's a potted toroid. What does that mean? The transformer is a very expensive part. So they seal it in a non-microphonic resin. And then it's put into a mu metal shield. So it does not radiate EMI into the circuits. So you're protecting it, but then they did something more. To eliminate mechanical hum of the transformer, years ago, PrimaLuna invented something called an AC offset killer. Now you can buy AC offset killers from other companies now for between $500 and $1,000. And that's all they are, is an AC offset killer, right? But it's built into your PrimaLuna. And what does it do? Under certain circumstances, depending on the home, you can get mechanical hum from a transformer. And they're just trying to drop the noise floor. Don't think about high power anymore. Blow that out of your mind, because that's not the way you get high performance. Think about blacker blacks. Think about dropping the noise floor. And that's what PrimaLuna has always been about. And the only way that you get that is from proper part selection and great engineering. I'm so proud to be working with this company. I'm so proud about all the great emails that we get from people who love them and use them year after year. I mean, it's a product that now grandma can have a tube amp. You got what I'm saying? And I have grandmas that own these. It's super. So go to your PrimaLuna dealer, do your due diligence. Do not buy any amplifier, or especially preamps, without going to Google and typing it in and looking at pictures of it opened up and compare for yourself to a PrimaLuna. You do not have to be an engineer. You don't have to be an engineer. Look inside. Make sure you get something for your money. Don't trust me. Don't trust anybody. Do your own investigation. Get something that's worth it. Get something that is going to last you a lifetime. Thanks for listening.